My wife and I have been living together for 12 years. We have bought a beautiful house together and have paid off. This one time, when I was fixing my car in the garage, I told my wife that I needed to go to AutoZone to get something for my car. So I left. When I was still at the stores, I got a call from my wife saying that she had called the police because a homeless man had broken into our house and was trying to claim that he was me. So my wife cut the man with a kitchen knife. I hung up and rushed back home, and a police car was already there. My wife told the police that the homeless guy with torn clothes and a long beard was claiming that he was my husband. The homeless man then hugged my wife and cried. So that was when she grabbed a knife on the kitchen counter and cut the homeless man in the arms. Then the man got out and took off running. I comforted my wife and tried to calm her down. That night, when we were going to sleep, my wife turned around and told me that when the homeless man looked right in her eyes, she felt some connection and said that man kind of looked like me, if I was to have a long beard and mustache. It cracked me up and I made a small laugh. Then she hit me on the shoulder and said, "That's not funny." Fast forward to 7 months later. One evening, my wife and I were driving to get some late-night snacks. As we were driving past the intersection, a car ran a red light and crashed into the side of my wife's seat. She died instantly. I was at the hospital for 3 days. I woke up in tears, and when I got home, I felt like a dead man. I had lost everything. Looking through photos on the wall and going through her phone makes me want to kill myself for letting her die. I feel like it was my fault. 2 weeks later, I quit my job and decided to sell the house. Each day I bought a liquor bottle and walked around town. I lived on the street for 2 months until I realized I had already spent half of the money from my house that I sold. My parents live in a different country, and I have no siblings. I'm the only child in my family, and when my parents call or FaceTime me, I go inside a coffee shop to make myself look good. So they won't know what I'm going through. So they'll think I've moved on. Over time, I spent nearly 80% of my money on alcohol purchases. One day, I was walking around town. It was a rainy day, and thunderstorms were raging. I decided to walk my drunk ass to my wife and my old house. When I got to the house, it made me miss her so much, and looking at the house makes me feel bad for my wife, because I sold the house that we both worked so hard for. I realized this was not what she wanted, and was finally so angry at myself at this point. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I walked slowly in front of the house. I passed out in the bushes beside the house. Some time later, I woke up to find the garage open. I looked around me and it was sunny. I was confused. I hid in the bushes and saw a car back out of the garage and left, but the weird thing is that looked like my old car I used to have. Then I looked at the driveway and saw my wife's old car. I was in shock and everything felt so weird, like I was seeing my past or something. I peeked in the window and, to my surprise, I saw my wife in the kitchen cooking. I bent down and leant on the wall, and my heart was beating so fast, I felt like I was going to faint. I looked up again and peered. It was really my wife. So I went to the front door and it wasn't locked, so I opened the door. My wife jumped and got scared when she saw me, but I couldn't stop my tears, so I went to hug her. I told her that I missed her so much. I suddenly felt a pain in my arms. She had cut me with a knife and attempted to stab me a couple of times. I then covered my bloody arms with my shirt and ran to the street. I then ran to a parked truck and jumped into the bed of the truck. I was losing a lot of blood and passing out. I woke up in the hospital, and the police queried me with tons of questions. I told them exactly what had happened to me, that my dead wife had done this to me. The police looked at me like I was crazy. 2 days later, they got nothing out of me and finally let me go. I walked back to my old house and finally got the courage to knock on the door. A Hispanic woman opened the door and said that they had bought the house almost 2 years ago. I walked away in tears and decided to go and visit my wife at the cemetery. I told her that I'd move on, that I would stop living this way, and that I would be a better person from now on. I got myself a job and am living in a small apartment alone now. And this is a true time glitch, or time travel that happened to me. A time glitch happened to me when I was a senior in high school. Whether you believe it or not, this really happened to me. One hot summer day, after school, I was dropped off by the bus at the bus stop 2 blocks from my house. As I was walking home, I noticed a sprinkler going on the lawn next to me. I bent down and washed my sweaty face with the water. As I wiped my face with my shirt, I looked around and continued walking, but the environment felt different. I was so confused. It was so cold and windy like in the winter. Being a 17-year-old kid, I just shrugged it off and continued my way home. I finally reached my block and made a turn. When I got closer to my house, there was a different car park on the driveway, and I thought maybe we had someone visiting us. I looked around and didn't recognize any of the cars parked in the driveway. They appeared to be brand new, and it was the first time I'd seen this model car. I knocked on the door, and an old Caucasian man opened it. I got scared for a bit, then he asked, "Can I help you?" I told the man that I lived here, and he said I had the wrong house. Then I told him my address, and he said it's the right address. But he has been living here for more than 19 years and doesn't know what I'm trying to do here. My heart dropped, and I was confused. Then the old man told me to call my parents, so I took out my flip phone, and when the old man saw my phone, he said, "You young kids still use flip phones these days." In my mind, I was thinking that this guy was nuts or something, because back then, I got the latest flip phone, and at that time, most kids and teenagers didn't own a phone. I dialed a couple of times but nothing. I called my uncle and nothing again. When the man saw me struggling with my phone, he handed his phone to me and said, "Try mine." I held his phone in my hand and, to my surprise, the phone was as big as my palm. It's a touch-screen phone. At that time, I didn't know anything about touch-screen phones. I looked at him confused and said, "What's this?" He replied by saying, "You have never seen a smartphone before. Stop playing games, I have no time for this." I was lost and said sorry and ran back to my bus stop. I was shaking at this time. It was so cold, and I realized everything around me was not the same. I walked to the main road and noticed that cars are more high-tech, and their shapes are different from what I remember. I walked to the park that is close to my house and tried calling all the people on my phone list, but nothing. My eyes are welling up tears. It's been a while since I cried and was scared. I wiped my tears and went for a walk around the park, and when I saw a couple kissing on the basketball court, I asked them what year it was, and they just laughed at me. So I ignored them and walked to the gas station near me. I asked the cashier what today's date was, and she said March 5th. Then I asked what about the year. She replied, 2021. When I heard the year 2021, my heart dropped and I was about to faint. She said, "Is anything wrong?" But I dashed out of the store as quickly as I could back to my house, and I can see that everything has changed. I was standing on the sidewalk, staring at my house when it started to rain. Then I ran back to the park, and by then it was raining like crazy. I sit under the tall baseball bench and cry. I tell myself that after the rain stops, I'm going to go back to the gas station and call the police. It was thundering and raining like crazy at this point, so I lay down under the bench shivering and feeling sick. I dozed off and awoke with the sun in my eyes, leaping from the baseball bench and looking around confusedly. As I look around the park, there are kids running and playing. The weather is hot. There is no sign that it has been raining. I walk down to the street and see that all the cars look back to normal, and I don't see any high-tech cars anymore. I walked back to my neighborhood and everything seemed right again. When I got to my house, I saw all my family cars parked. I went up and knocked on the door. My brother opened the door and yelled to my mom. She ran so fast and hugged me and said, "Where the heck have you been?" I was shocked and couldn't speak as tears rolled down from my eyes. My mom hugged me and said, "It's okay, honey. Tell all about it later." My mom called my dad, and he and my other family members rushed to the house. I was more confused. My dad then said where I had gone to, because I had been missing for 4 days, and that they had filed a report with the police that I was missing. 2 hours later, the police came to our house and checked up on me. I told the police everything and they said please stop talking, but I kept repeating the same thing over and over. They wrote down everything and didn't believe what happened to me. My mom is the only person who truly believes everything I say. This is a story that really happened to me, believe it or not. I was lucky that I got back to my own time. It still gives me chills when I think of it.